It's been a little bit since we dared to gaze into the abyss, and I've recovered some of my spoons. So instead of doing the best thing for my mental health, here we go again. This is a special episode of Weird Hills, focusing on a sensitive topic, porn and the GC movement. This video will not discuss the ethics of pornography in general, or the porn industry or sex work. That is for another video. But instead, an examination of the very odd relationship between the GC movement and porn. You see, the GC movement is nominally very anti-pornography, with quite the supporting initiatives like Trafficking Hub and other anti-porn movements. This is in line in general with their opposition to sex work.
Tomorrow is Trans Day of Remembrance. It's a day to remember the lives of trans people lost to transphobic violence. These stats paint an abhorrent picture of how dangerous it can be for trans people to move around the world as their true selves. 58% of the dead are prostitutes! That's not intersectionality at work. Prostitution is a dangerous and exploitative occupation where people are routinely killed. Let that sink in next time you're preaching hashtag sex work is work.
First, the credit cards. Now, the auditors desert Pornhub. How long can it last? And which porn co is next? We object to porn.
I can only assume that any male socialist giving instructions to women about ethics of having a cleaner chooses not to consume pornography. After all, the women abused in the porn trade have their exploited labour to the most extreme degree. Just a reminder, lads, if you toss off to the degradation and violent abuse of women, porn, then you are not anti-sexist, you are not part of the solution to male violence, but a massive part of the problem. Your choice.
What about furry porn? Do you stop being a feminist if you look at gay furry porn? Is Zabi Vaca the prime anti-feminist?
Ah, Zabi Vaca! Are you people proud? Are you people proud of yourselves? You made rushes for someone to cry! You made rushes...
Gay porn is homophobic, which is intrinsically tied to misogyny. Things like the bottom being treated as weak is rooted in misogyny. Weren't you the one who said cis men face misogyny? Didn't I say enough CritFacts? How do I keep getting drawn into no more CritFacts? You've given me enough of a headache for a day. May I suggest you read some Andrea Dworkin?
Is all porn misogynistic? What about porn where the bottom is a power bottom and the top reads Andrea Dworkin?
All filmed porn sold for profit has the potential to be coercive.
I would guess it makes sense that a group of people who are against one kind of bodily autonomy would also be opposed to other kinds. And as usual, they insist on tying everything they don't like to trans people, with many of them blaming porn for the existence or increase of trans people, or claiming that trans people are quote-unquote porn sick.
Alright, I'm Mikasa Ackerman from that famous anime Attack on Titan. People took pics and video. This isn't just apathy, this is the actual hatred of women. Society is so porn sick that women are viewed as people, hence the meteoric rise of trans-identified men over women and the prioritization of boys' feelings over girls' safety.
Women and girls don't go into locker rooms with fucking flashlights and speculums to exhibit our vaginas to each other, whatever age. You're confusing women living our real lives with your brains' porn-sick imaginings again, TRA.
Me and Good Time Ghoul donate money whenever a TRA calls us a TERF. I'm now adding to this. Anytime a Tumblr femme tweets me, anytime someone mentions porn-sick bottom, I'll buy myself something nice. A massage, some perfume. Every time they try and harass me, I will treat myself.
These two stunning and brave trans women certainly have sexual fetishes. Bleh! And in about 30 seconds you'd find about another 1,000 examples on Twitter of porn-sick men with trans identities. And off Twitter, prominent TRA Jane Faye is a great spokesperson for the community. Eye-rolling emoji.
Imagine turning the definition of women into something hyper-feminine and hyper-sexualized and acting surprised when the only people who identify with that are porn-sick males.
The porn-sick males and the pack of handmaidens found me. This is why I only interact with other rad femmes. Lamau never again.
Where are my pearls? Many of us simply have no desire to understand or empathize with porn-sick males.
In the same universe, porn-sick males call yourselves woman and have the fucking nerve to turn around and tell the sex class you oppress and have oppressed for centuries that you're actually the most oppressed.
Because the tweets neatly illustrate how fucking ridiculous the whole thing is. Women-hating males identifying as women as a vehicle for their weird porn-sick fantasies is not exactly unusual. Do you think this person should be in women's spaces? Self-ID is bullshit.
Porn use and masturbation are known to make people become transgender due to how they mess with the brain's chemistry.
Oddly, none of them have ever been able to present any medical evidence for this supposed porn sickness. How would we diagnose it? What are the symptoms? How long do I have left to live, doctor? And will I be able to still play the piano after they remove all the furry porn from my brain? And the largest demographic of porn consumers are cis men. So if there were some kind of porn sickness, we would expect that to be the demographic most impacted. And since the overwhelming majority of men surveyed have viewed porn before, we would expect a lot more people to transition, but that doesn't seem to be happening either. This kind of rhetoric is not new, however. Right-wing religious organizations opposing pornography, like Fight the New Drug and Covenant Eyes, promote the pseudoscientific idea of porn addiction or porn-causing diseases.
How porn can affect the brain like a drug. A deeper look into how the brain works reveals that addictions to harmful substances like tobacco have striking similarities to porn compulsion, including impaired decision-making. Resources. Help is a click away. Learn about porn and why it's toxic. Resources for porn addicts seeking freedom. Fortify, a science-based free recovery platform recommended by Fight the New Drug, dedicated to helping individuals find lasting freedom from pornography. The service includes connecting with others, learning about compulsive behaviors, and tracking the recovery journey. She Recovery, women only, provides women with help, hope, and healing from pornography and sexual addiction through safe, confidential online community and access to unique recovery resources. NoFap. This vibrant online community platform is designed to help people overcome porn addiction, porn overuse, or compulsive sexual behavior.
However, psychological experts do not recognize porn addiction as real. As you may recall from my video on GCs and the religious right, this cross-pollination of ideas is not at all unusual, and it also explains their fixation on porn. For decades, conservative Christians have attempted to create moral panics about pornography, and as with many other tactics, GCs have adopted it.
Is pornography addictive? Pornography addiction is not recognized by the American Psychological Association, APA, as a mental health problem or disorder, like drug or alcohol addiction. Moreover, according to the DSM-5, Manual of Mental Disorders, the world's authoritative guide on psychological disorders, pornography and sex addictions are not a psychological disorder. Some disorders the DSM-5 does recognize are addictions to gambling, alcohol, drugs, and most recently, online gaming.
Some go a step further and connect it to Ray Blanchard's outdated AGP-HSTS theory, claiming that only AGP trans women are porn sick or that porn creates AGPs.
I wish people could understand that I like doing porn. Not sex, sexting, flirting. I've only had sex like 3 times off cam in my life. Say you're porn sick and AGP without saying you're porn sick or AGP.
More and more, I'm starting to think these reformed porn-sick online RWBB dudes have AGP and are so obsessed with women's business that they want to be women.
porn-sick misogynist gets off on the humiliation of pretending to be a woman and a Muslim, but we aren't supposed to notice that, so people pretend they don't see what's right in front of them. Hashtag autogynephilia, hashtag AGP, hashtag misogyny, hashtag Islamophobia, hashtag transactivism is misogyny, hashtag peak trans.
You must be a child. I can testify from real-life experience that trans lesbians are new. They are porn-sick AGP, heterosexual men, and they are appropriating lesbianism for a kink.
A large majority of MTF trannies are porn-sick AGP nuts.
The rise of AGP pornography and the powerful white men who have succumbed and spread the ideology out up to the wider society. I should not be required to unwillingly participate in the paraphilias of the porn-sick.
I think the most visible TRA trans on social media, as opposed to everyday trans for lack of a better way to describe them, do tend to fall into the porn-soaked AGP Blanchard model, but this assumes that the only main reason to transition is for the purpose of sexual arousal.
So on the surface, of all people, one would expect that GCs do not consume porn, and are of course consistent in their opposition to it. But there's a twist. When asked to back up their assertions about trans people, many turn to, well, porn.
So many girls transition to get away from objectification, sexualization, and kink. So many men transition to normalize all of it. Everyone needs to see this ridiculous juxtaposition.
Wow, that's an incredible claim to make. Any proof to back this up, or is this all conjecture?
Aside from the rampant pornography and videos of thousands of trans women ejaculating while they tell us they're women?
I'm sorry, but what? Your source for claiming that trans women are trying to sexualize everything is that porn of trans women exists? This is a really bad argument on multiple levels, so let's break it down. First of all, porn isn't reality. This is evidenced by the fact that people do not typically have sex with the plumber or the pizza delivery guy. As a former pizza delivery plumber...
Wait, they don't? I've been doing this plumbing thing all wrong.
Wrong version of laying pipe, my dude. Porn is fantasy, and shouldn't be used as a source of information about reality. This is like trying to claim that hobbits are trying to steal your jewelry by citing Lord of the Rings. In particular, most trans porn, and most pornography in general, is created for an audience of straight cis men, and displays a fetishized depiction of trans people that is deliberately sexualized for the male gaze. Making a judgment about trans people based on porn is like making a judgment on cis women based on how cis porn performers behave. A very bad way to judge a group. Additionally, people are allowed to ejaculate. People are allowed to feel pleasure. So as long as they're doing it with consenting partners or alone, there's no harm to be done. There are far more porn videos featuring cis people having orgasms, and we don't use that to restrict the rights of cis people. But also, one wonders why she was watching thousands of clips of trans pornography. One would think someone from a movement that opposes porn would at the very least not try to watch it herself. Looking back, this same person has had other questionable takes on porn in the past, too.
May have to start sending screenshots of trans porn to the delusional and asking them if they see a man or a woman.
First off, sending unsolicited screenshots of porn to people is unambiguously sexual harassment. Second, why do you even have all of these screenshots of trans porn? No one is forcing you to collect random screenshots of trans porn.
I know a fetish when I see it. Go down the rabbit hole of any strange TRA account and you'll eventually find trans porn. All of it with intact trans women. Hundreds upon hundreds of accounts. No neo-vagina in sight.
Are you sure those weren't porn accounts you were looking at? Because I follow a lot of trans people on Twitter, and most of them don't have any porn on their timelines. This seems like kind of creepy and obsessive behavior. As for the quote-unquote intact part, call back to whatever I said about porn presenting a fetishized version of trans women. A lot of fetishization centers around a trans woman's
Pepsi.
So most trans porn features trans women who still have
Pepsi.
And most trans women don't appreciate that fetishization either, because it's objectifying, as you can see by how trans women view chasers, or cishet guys who fetishize trans women. Of course, not all cis men who date trans women are chasers, but men who view trans women as fetish objects are not well liked by the community. This isn't the only transphobe to cite porn as a justification either, not at all. Here's one explaining how she peaks, or, turf speak for radicalizes, people.
I have an AGP folder on my phone for this purpose. After I've described the fetish in detail, I showed them the evidence because I know they're still imagining an effeminate post-op passing trans woman. No progress can be made if they're picturing Haley Cropper.
Even the most divorced man himself, Graham Linehan, does this. In a recent blog post, Graham attempts to paint trans people as fetishists by citing an image of trans women participating in the hue cow fetish.
Wish I could better capture how the milk sprays out with the first few squeezes.
A cursory search for transgender erotica on Amazon reveals MTF transformation erotica specifically centered on the lactophilia fetish. Quote, "The farmer I found to plow this field of mine also wanted to get a little milking done," unquote. The summary reads, quote, "I never thought being a woman could be this pleasurable," unquote.
Once again, I have to ask why Graham was looking at fetish porn in the first place. I think this says a lot more about him than it does about trans women. And given that most erotica about trans people is written by or for cis people, it is yet again nonsensical to use as evidence.
Is this okay with you?
What the fuck? Other girls like that? No way. I'm doing that. It looks painful and humiliating. It must be just me. Maybe I'm not like everyone else. Maybe I'm asexual or even non-binary.
While most of these examples focus on trans women, they manage to drag non-binary people in as well. This meme claims that watching porn will make people asexual or non-binary. Setting aside that asexuality is a sexual orientation, check out my video on that topic to learn more about asexuality and how transphobes misunderstand it. While non-binary is a gender identity, I don't think anyone becomes non-binary or asexual from watching porn. After all, if that were the case, why are the majority of porn viewers not asexual or non-binary? As for asexuality, the idea that people change their sexuality due to media is a trope with a deeply homophobic history, as anyone who remembers from the fear-mongering over gay television characters will know.
A controversial new law has now come into effect in Hungary, despite condemnation from the EU. The law bans portrayals of homosexuality or gender change in school educational materials or TV shows for under 18s. Critics say it discriminates against LGBTQ people. The European Commission has urged Hungary to repeal the law, but Budapest says EU efforts to overturn it will be in vain, insisting the measure is there to protect children.
Additionally, this contradicts something they mentioned earlier. As transphobes have already pointed out, there's porn of trans women doing humiliating or dysphoria-inducing things. So wouldn't it untrans them as well? In conclusion, it seems like transphobes are far more obsessed with porn than any trans person I've ever met, which ordinarily wouldn't surprise me. But we know how much they love projection. However, their use of porn as a citation shows an inability to distinguish fact from fiction, which is a serious issue. If you cannot tell that pornography is fictional and not a realistic depiction of trans people or anyone else, please
get over yourself.
And before you ask, no, I don't want you to become a chaser. I want you to leave trans people alone. Anyway, since I'm not obsessed with porn, I think I've had enough talking about it. Thank you for suffering with me, and don't forget to water your large sausage pizza. Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to our fans and to our supporters on patreon.com, which is linked in the description box down below. My name is Blue Jay Phoenix, and you can find me on Twitter at PhoenixBlueJay. Have a good night.